Archangel Michael warns, the barriers around you are not as soundless as you presume, and the watchers observing you are nearer than you can fathom. In the tranquility of night, when solitude seems absolute, an unseen presence tallies each action, every nuance, and all the concealed truths you believed were safely shrouded. The neighbor who greets you with a friendly smile by day transforms into a lurking figure at night, harboring secrets you never consented to share. They have taken note when your light remains aglow long after midnight, murmuring among themselves about your solitary activities. They monitor who crosses your threshold and how long they linger, meticulously collecting fragments of your life like jigsaw pieces intent on uncovering a hidden narrative. What you believe to be your safe haven has been breached by their unwarranted scrutiny, and the narrative they construct is more sinister than your lived reality. Their gaze follows you outside, analyzing your attire, expressions, and even the slightest gestures. Each morning stroll, every dialogue, and each package delivered to your home has been meticulously documented in their mind as though evidence for a trial you were unaware of. Their observation goes beyond simple watching. They interpret, distorting your reality into fabrications that they share with others. This is the most unsettling part. They have already begun to disseminate their twisted perceptions to a widening audience. Words that are not yours circulate under your name, and the image they project of you starkly contrasts with the truth you embody. You find yourself under constant surveillance, judgment, and exposure, all without your consent, and this is merely the inception of what is to unfold. Type Amen to receive a blessing. 333. Your neighbor is acutely aware of the silent tears you shed, mistakenly interpreting your pain as a sign of weakness, failing to perceive the resilience it takes to bear such burdens alone. They speak mockingly to others about what they cannot comprehend, their cruelty revealing only their own unresolved bitterness. They observe the care with which you dressed for significant occasions, registering your smile but choosing to twist it into envy, questioning why you deserved such joy. Your happiness has become their discomfort, your tranquility their weight. They have even scrutinized the packages left at your doorstep, wondering about the treasures you may have received, but their curiosity is laden with malice. Beneath innocent inquiries lies envy, and concealed within that envy is the desire to disrupt. The sound of your laughter has caught their attention as well, leading them to label it excessively loud, as if reveling in joy were a crime that should be stifled. What they perceive is not merely your life but rather a reflection of their own unfulfilled aspirations in contrast to the light emanating from you. Type Amen to receive a blessing. For 44, they observe intently when you converse on the phone, straining to decipher who is on the other end, noting the shifts in your tone, the way it softens, cracks, or carries unspoken secrets. They gather these fragments to weave a narrative not rightfully theirs. When you pass by their door, they lean in, feigning invisibility, absorbing your scent and mood, judging every aspect as though they possess the right to claim a portion of your essence. They have constructed an image of you from stolen glimpses, and the alarming reality is how compelling this distorted portrayal seems to others. Your neighbor's fascination transcends mere curiosity. It is a restlessness fueled by the illumination your presence casts on their own darkness. They do not observe in admiration, they watch because your very existence starkly reminds them of their own deficiencies. Each furtive glance reveals not just your being but the profound void within themselves, which instills terror. They are aware of the sleepless nights you've endured, contemplating when your lights flickered, wondering if fear was the cause of your wakefulness. Rather than extending compassion, they have turned your vulnerabilities into a tale to nourish their own desolation. Type Amen to receive a blessing. 555. The harsh truth is this: the neighbor who surveils you is not merely a passive observer, they embody a threat. Their words travel faster than their feet, and what they claim to have witnessed is distorting others' perceptions of you. Their silence in your presence serves only as a facade for the venom they spew behind your back. They observed visitors who departed as quietly as they arrived, fabricating narratives of secrecy drenched in falsehoods. What they perceive fuels the flames of animosity they ignite in others, and soon the smoke of their machinations will reach your threshold. They watch you sitting by the window, lost in thought, convinced they can read your mind, misleading themselves into thinking they comprehend your story, intentions, and ambitions. What they fail to realize is that their conjectures reveal their obsession rather than any insight into your reality. Even during your silent prayers, they sensed your stillness, mocking what they do not grasp, unaware that the divine presence surrounding you exceeds their realm of understanding. They may intrude upon your actions, but they will never breach the protection that envelopes you. Type Amen to receive a blessing. 666. They witnessed you closing your curtains, yet even then, their imaginations ran wild, inventing scenes for which they have no basis in reality. Their field of vision may be obstructed, but their envy thrives, fueling their narratives that spread quicker than you could ever silence. They took note of your footsteps in the hall, memorizing every rhythm as if it told them more than it actually did. They detected when your pace quickened and when it slowed, judging the quality of your existence based solely on their interpretations. To them, every sound becomes evidence, while each silence transforms into a riddle they are determined to decipher. They observed shadows passing across your walls, erroneously assuming new guests had arrived, fabricating details that never existed to satisfy their craving for drama. What they claim to have seen is not truth, it is merely a warped reflection of their own restless spirit. They even monitored how many times you turned your key in the lock, convinced it held significance, despite its sheer insignificance. Their obsession has overstepped boundaries. No longer do they merely observe as a neighbor, but rather as a thief of your privacy. Type Amen to receive a blessing. 777. They observed how your freshly laundered clothes hung outside, interpreting the colors you favored as a reflection of your inner self. They spoke of your choices as if they divulged your deepest secrets, when in reality, they revealed none at all. Their intrusive observations turned the mundane aspects of your life into fodder for their insatiable curiosity. When you stood in contemplative silence, gazing into the distance, they assumed you were waiting for someone, and their whispers transformed into a series of embellished tales. You became a figure within their fabrications, a narrative under their control without your consent. They even scrutinized the smiles you offered to strangers, ascribing meaning to them that was purely their invention. Your simple acts of kindness were distorted into something suspicious, and the warmth you expressed was consumed by their gossip. What you shared openly was contaminated by their envy. They tracked your every departure, convinced you were hiding a secret, blind to your genuine intentions. Instead, they crafted their own narrative, a narrative far more perilous than the truth itself. Upon hearing the sound of your door opening, they would eagerly anticipate it as if it signaled their time to act. Each instance prompted them to record what transpired, turning your life into their sole source of entertainment. They noticed when heavy items found their way into your home, spinning wild theories about their contents to bolster their own sense of significance. With every retelling, their voices amplified these stories, and the weight of their lies eclipsed the quiet truth you wished to protect. They remarked upon the flowers you placed near your window, not to admire their beauty, but to speculate on their significance. Their curiosity evolved into unfounded accusations, warping what was precious to you into something mistrustful. They even took note of the tears shed during lonely nights you wished were private, transforming your grief into a source of amusement for their secret gatherings, showing callous disregard for your suffering. They heard your laughter echo late into the night, but instead of sharing in your joy, they distorted it into arrogance, imagining you were mocking them. Unbeknownst to them, your happiness served as a shield against your burdens. Their bitterness transformed your joy into a riveting tale of revenge. They observed how you rushed to the door for something dear to you, concocting baseless assumptions to fill in non-existent gaps in their narrative. The treasures you valued became tainted with their envy, as they decried your rights to them. They noticed how quickly you answered the phone, fabricating tales of betrayal in their minds instead of recognizing simple connectivity. Each ring became an opportunity for them to drag your name through their shadows. They even recalled the days when burdened shoulders indicated you were quietly suffering. Their lack of compassion turned your struggles into fodder for idle speculation, as they pronounced you weak, oblivious to your resilience. They observed the cadence of your mornings, the deliberate manner in which you stepped outside. Their whispered theories about your early departures became an obsession, and your routines morphed into a dark narrative crafted by their imagination. When the post arrived at your doorstep, they leaned closer from their window, eager to analyze what was intended solely for you. They watched as you took a moment to close your eyes in search of tranquility, only to report to others that you were concealing something, transforming your need for rest into a sign of weakness. Meanwhile, they wore a facade of innocence, concealing their relentless craving for your story behind a thin mask. Even when you offered kindness, they interpreted it as strategy, exclaiming to others that you were merely feigning sincerity while hiding sinister motives. Their vision was clouded by their own deceit, rendering them incapable of perceiving your truth. They noted your movements when you left with bags in hand, speculating about the treasures you may have acquired. What you carried in silence became fodder for their tales, spun into myths of a life obscured. Guests arriving at your door bore witness to your generosity, but in their minds, these visits morphed into scandalous narratives, creating unnarrated drama where none existed. In their envious eyes, joy became sinful, and loyalty was reimagined as betrayal. During moments of silence, they grew uneasy, unable to tolerate the absence of gossip, and thus, they forged new stories. Your tranquility became their profound discomfort, and your quietude stirred up storms within their imaginations. They listened for the fading sound of your footsteps down the street, interpreting your gait as significant. They treated your life as a theatrical performance, with themselves seated in the shadows, reveling in the spectacle of a play in which you had no intention of participating. When they perceived that you had closed your blinds more tightly, their curiosity intensified, as they assumed there must be something sinister concealed within. To them, privacy was never innocent, it must indicate the presence of darkness. They transformed your need for seclusion into a display of guilt, speculating that you harbored secrets beyond comprehension. They observed you entering your home with weary feet, burdened by the day's trials. Instead of offering sympathy, they hinted at your avoidance, insisting that you were weighed down by secrets. Exhaustion became another avenue for them to weave their tales. They took note of flickering lights in your home late into the night, concluding that you must be awake for troubling reasons. Their minds could not rest until they constructed a fictitious narrative surrounding your vigil. Your insomnia, your musings, your silence, all became their obsession. They observed the moments when you smiled in solitude, completely unaware that you were under their gaze. This stirred in them a belief that you must be concealing a source of joy, an experience from which they were excluded, intensifying their envy. Instead of embracing your inner radiance, they sought to extinguish it. They even caught faint melodies drifting from your window, sounds that brought you comfort but became fodder for their ridicule. They spread the notion that you sought to display your talents, oblivious to the fact that those tunes were your sanctuary. Your transformation did not escape their notice. When you adorned yourself in vibrant attire or presented a sharper appearance, rather than offering admiration, they resorted to speculation. They propagated rumors that perhaps you were involved with someone, crafting stories devoid of truth. They turned your personal growth into a subject of suspicion and your brightness into a target for gossip. They marked the hours when your door remained closed, suggesting to others that you were never truly alone, even when you were. They couldn't bear the silence that accompanied your absence and thus filled it with a cacophony of lies. They watched as you placed your hand over your heart, overcome with emotions you found difficult to articulate, misinterpreting those moments of vulnerability as signs of distress. They eavesdropped but failed to grasp the truth, which perpetually eluded their understanding. They counted the instances you offered smiles to strangers, twisting those gestures of kindness into accusations of seeking attention, when in fact you were simply sharing warmth. They noted the fresh air wafting in through your open windows, whispering that you were inviting prying eyes inside, distorting your need for freedom into a scandalous proposition. Your simplicity amused them, while they misread your silence during moments of reflection as suspicious plotting, unable to recognize the peace within your stillness. They interpreted your gaze at the stars not as contemplation, but as a longing for something out of reach, weaving a narrative of absence around your sacred moments. They scrutinized a fleeting visitor, constructing dangerous tales from innocent encounters, turning mundane interactions into scandalous gossip. They misjudged the strength it took for you to face the world again each day, seeing only an opportunity for their own narratives of power through your suffering. Even in joyful moments shared with close companions, they twisted the laughter into something nefarious, feeding off your light because their darkness thrived on comparison. They noticed when you returned home, steps weary but unyielded, and misinterpreted your weariness as failure, failing to understand that you were merely rising once again. They observed as you carried in a simple bag, their imaginations running wild with suggestions of hidden treasures or secrets, distorting the ordinary into extraordinary tales rife with venom. When you secured your door, they inferred it was to guard something undisclosed, twisting your desire for security into a sinister narrative. As you stepped out with purpose, instead of respecting your determination, they accused you of hastening towards shameful pursuits. They saw your friendly greetings at the gate, transforming innocent exchanges into dubious tales, wielding your kindness as a weapon against you, and using your connections as excuses for envy. They heard your laughter in moments of solitude and deemed it arrogance, unable to recognize the mending quality of your joy, thus poisoning it with their bitterness. They rushed to assumptions whenever you wore something new, speculating that someone else must have gifted it to you, constructing an elaborate lie around your little joys. Every sound in your home, a chair moving, a door creaking, your sighs, became fodder for their scrutiny, as they obsessed over the mundane, failing to grasp the essence of your life unfolding naturally. They assumed when you stood still, lost in thought, that you were longing for someone or something, rather than understanding that you were simply recharging your strength. Though they pried into your affairs, they could not comprehend that what you held dear was none of their business. When you appeared weary, they interpreted it as a sign of fragility, crafting stories of your imminent collapse without recognition of the resilience it took for you to rise again stronger each day. They scrutinized your friendships, questioning the purity of those connections and planting seeds of envy at their essence. They claimed your morning departures concealed secret meetings, morphing your discipline into a controversial intrigue, never realizing that such assumptions reflected more about them than about you. They gasped when your voice broke in the intimacy of privacy, recollecting it as entertainment. Your sacred distress turned into a spectacle for them. They twisted your tears into their narratives, blind to the fact that divine records were being kept of their duplicities. They noticed your quiet smiles while gazing at your reflection and labeled it pride, unable to see the gratitude that lay behind it. They fixated on the flickering of lights late into the night, interpreting it as an indication of hidden transgressions, transmuting your restlessness into salacious gossip. They even watched the way you nurtured your plants, fabricating a story that you were signaling something secretive to the world. They crafted intricate narratives from your most mundane actions. Their affliction stems from their obsession, and the tales they spun lay bare their own hollowness. Type Amen to receive a blessing. 12:12. They observed when you closed your eyes in prayer, your lips forming words unheard. Rather than show reverence, they whispered mockingly, claiming you were pleading for unearned favors. They failed to recognize the sanctity of your silence, transforming their prying into sacrilege. They watched as you tidied your surroundings, arranging items with care. In response, they spread falsehoods, suggesting you were preparing for a notable guest, weaving fables from mere dust and fabric. They distorted your meticulousness into obsession and your discipline into secrecy. They noted how you welcomed the morning sun, your face illuminated by its light. To them, it appeared as arrogance, as if you deemed yourself superior, almost untouchable. Unable to accept that serenity had graced you, they tainted it with envy. They observed how you remained in silent repose after a long day, resting both body and soul. They asserted to others that you were scheming, concealing plans within your thoughts. Lacking understanding of your stillness as a source of strength, they transform it into suspicion. Type Amen to receive a blessing. 1313. They heard your footsteps reverberating late into the night, whispering that you were restless due to hidden secrets. They could not comprehend that your path was safeguarded, that every step was guided beyond their comprehension. They noted your laughter with a visitor, joy radiating from your face. They recast that moment as scandalous, alleging something forbidden. They contaminated joy with their envy, incapable of handling your happiness. They even beheld your acts of sharing food, kindness emanating from you. They alleged you sought affection through generosity, tarnishing your selflessness with lies. Unable to grasp the purity of your heart, they sullied it instead. They watched as you gazed skyward in awe, mocking what they could never comprehend. They have seen much, yet they shall never know. The divine does not disclose to spies what is sacred to the chosen. Type Amen to receive a blessing. 1414. They detected a marked change in your routine when you chose to stay indoors longer than usual. They whispered about a hidden companion, spreading suspicion with abandon. They constructed a lie from your absence, fabricating a performance from your silence. They witnessed your emergence with confidence, your head held high. Instead of expressing admiration, they labeled you arrogant. Unable to tolerate the strength in your demeanor, they sought to diminish it with their words. They observed how you handled documents, suggesting you concealed a contract. They created stories of clandestine wealth and power, none of which belonged to them. Their envy blinded them, distorting reality into fantasy. They noted when your laughter abruptly faded, claiming it indicated trouble. They conjured storms from mere clouds, transforming your transient silence into a heavy gloom. They spied, but they never grasped the truth. Type Amen to receive a blessing. 1515. They saw when you received a message and your face brightened. They told others it was from someone perilous, fabricating non-existent details. Your smile became fodder for scandal in their eyes. They observed when weariness overtook you and presumed it was guilt. They could not see the silent struggles you endured. They misinterpreted your resilience as fragility, repelled by your strength. They even witnessed your generosity towards a stranger, misrepresenting it as a calculated act seeking attention. They tainted your most genuine gestures with shadows of deceit. They heard the soft creak of your door opening and closing with care, spreading whispers that someone entered clandestinely, injecting poison into an event that never occurred. They transformed the ordinary into a perilous tale. Type Amen to receive a blessing. 1616.